Halberg's arrow trembled on the string. The stag stood between two black pines, steam pouring from its nostrils, one hind leg dark with blood, one clean shot, and his children would eat marrow before dawn. Then the sky bent low. Few fires slid between the branches. Not lightning, not torchlight. It moved without smoke, without crackle, flowing in ribbons above the stag's antlers. Green sparks opened and closed like watchful eyes. Halberg held his breath until his chest burned. The stag did not run. It lifted its head toward the lights, calm as a priest before sacrifice. Halberg released. The arrow snapped through the cold air and struck only Bach. The stag vanished behind a curtain of mist. Halberg cursed and lunged after it, boots breaking the snow crust, but the blood trail was gone. No hoof prints, no broken twigs, only scorched marks blackening the white ground. He crouched. The shapes forked like branches, almost like runes, but wrong. Too thin, too fresh, warm enough to melt the snow around them. Then the wind died. Swan beyond the trees, a voice called him by the name his dead brother had used when they were boys. Halberg's knife slid into his hand. The voice breathed, "Do not follow the stag. Follow the lights." Halberg backed away from the trees, though every branch seemed to lean after him. The lights drifted downhill, not toward the stag, toward the fjord. He followed with his knife low and his bow tight in his fist. Snow gave way to frozen mud. Pine shadow opened to a shore of black stones where his family's boathouse crouched against the wind. The door hung open. Inside, tar and salt filled the air. Nets lay unfinished. A half-mended float rolled across the floor, tapping wood with each gust. "Ori!" Halberg called. No answer. The longboat was halfway in the water. That was wrong. The tide was falling. No man had dragged it there. The shore showed no footprints, but Halberg's own. Then he saw the red wool. A torn strip from his son's cloak fluttered from an oarlock, wet as a tongue. Behind him, a torch flared. Astrid stood in the doorway, hair whipped loose beneath her hood. He never came home from the snares. Halberg touched the oarlock. Fresh cuts marked the wood. The same branching signs. Someone took him, he said, or something called him. The boat lurched hard against the stones. Beneath its floorboards, 3 slow knocks sounded, then one frantic scrape. Halberg drove his knife between the planks and tore until wet wood screamed. Astrid held the torch close. Smoke stung their eyes. No boy lay beneath the boards. Only a hollow space, packed with seaweed and an antler tube sealed in black wax. Halberg broke it open. Inside waited birch bark, curled tight. A crude mark showed their shore, the fjord, and a jagged island cave. Around it crawled the same thin, branching cuts. Before Astrid could speak, the blue lights slid over the water. Halberg pushed the boat out alone. "Bring him back," Astrid said. The fjord swallowed her voice. Oars dipped. Ice clicked against the hull. The lights hovered ahead, staining the black water green. Halfway across, the wind stopped so suddenly, Halberg heard his own teeth grind. Below the surface, pale faces opened their eyes. Helmets drifted under him. Hands rose and faded. Men drowned long ago stared from the deep, their beards waving like eelgrass. One mouth formed his father's name. This was no rival's trick. The old feud was awake beneath the fjord. Near the island, water bulged beside the boat. A dead hand broke the surface and clamped the gunwale. On its wrist gleamed his father's arm ring. Halberg struck at the wrist with his oar. The hand sank without a splash. He he rowed harder, breath-tearing white from his mouth, until the boat scraped stone beneath the island cliff. Ahead, a cave gaped open with the low tide, breathing rot and cold salt. Inside, whale oil lamps burned with weak yellow eyes. Old shields hung from the walls, swollen and split, each painted with names half-eaten by brine. A boy whimpered, "Father." Ori knelt beside a black pool, wrists bound with rawhide. A gray-bearded man stepped from behind him. Eric, outlaw, once his father's sworn blade. "Your bloodline fed the fjord lies," Eric rasped. "Peace meeting, they called it, but your father cut kin down under bread and ale." Halberg's stomach turned to ice. The shields were not trophies, they were markers. They were knockers. Above them, blue lights gathered against the cave roof. Eric seized Halberg's hunting knife from the ground where he had dropped it and pressed Ori toward the pool. Water rushed behind them. The tide had turned. Halberg lunged, but Eric kicked him down. Salt filled his mouth. The cave entrance vanished under rising water. The lamps flickered. Then the lights went black. Sword dog. Ori stopped breathing. Halberg's fingers found a rotten shield at his side. He ripped it from the wall and swung. Wood crashed into Eric's lamp. Fire burst gold across the cave. Halberg rose through the glare and drove his shoulder into Eric. The knife spun away. The old outlaw clawed at his face, but the tide slammed them both against stone. A boat's prow split the flooded mouth. Astrid! She leapt into waist-deep water with an axe in hand, eyes bright as iron. One blow cut Ori's bonds. Halberg dragged the boy to her. Behind them, Eric screamed. Pale hands had risen from the black pool. They gripped his cloak, his beard, his wrists. "I sought justice. The water took him under." For one heartbeat, Halberg saw his dead brother standing near the cave wall, pointing toward the sea. They fled. Outside, dawn blowed over the fjord. The cave groaned and collapsed behind them, sending foam across the rocks. Ori shook in Astrid's arms. Halberg looked up. The blue-green lights faded above the cliffs, quiet at last. He had not brought home meat. He had brought home the truth.